I'm here with Michael Ngahuka, the Vision New Zealand candidate for Tukituki. Kia ora, Michael, and thanks for joining me.
Kia ora, Andrew. It's great to be here.
Yes, thank you. Nice to meet you. Michael, tell us why you stand in these elections.
Why am I? Great question. Well, I actually last year stood for the Hastings District Council for the Flaxmere ward. And so just basically from all the community work that I've done in the past for a couple of decades, I see the importance of leadership in the public servant arena. And so that's just carried on and through standing for council and now standing for government. But more specifically, basically it's for people. I want to make a stand for people. People matter to me. I believe politics at the moment, to some degree, haven't really upkept the value of why they're actually standing, why public servants are there, which is to serve the people. So I'm standing to serve the people.
Okay, now you represent in the Vision New Zealand Party, which has links to Destiny Church and Hannah and Brian Tamaki. I think Hannah is actually the leader of the party. Yep. Tell us a bit about that connection and that.
Well, actually, I'm actually the pastor of Destiny Church in Hawke's Bay.
Oh, yeah.
I've been in the church since the age of 19, 20.
Yeah.
And the whole lifestyle pattern that the church introduced me to was totally different to where I came from at the time in Rarika, Flaxmere and Hastings. And so the connection there, it's been there for years.
Okay, so tell us a bit about your background. So where you grew up, as you say, locally and that,
yep. Yeah. So, how old am I? So, yeah, I'm 40 years old. Born and raised majority of my life in Hastings. Went to Hastings Boys High. I'm Ngāti Kahungunu descent. Whakapapa to quite a few marae in Ngāti Kahungunu.
Yeah.
Mohaka, Waipapa Iwi, Bridgepa, Mangaroa and also Koromota.
Yeah.
And even a little bit of links into Omahu. And so my grandparents worked here, my great-grandparents worked here, lived here, went to school here. And so that's sort of where I've come from. But yeah.
And what led you to Destiny Church, and when did you start becoming the pastor there?
Well, I've actually only been the pastor for the last year.
Okay.
But I've been functioning in that for about 7 years here in Hawke's Bay. Mm-hmm. But what led me to the church is when I was younger, I was a bit of the riff-raff in the community here. And I wouldn't say I was too bad, but drinking and driving led me down the wrong path. And to the point where I almost killed a whole lot of people in the car, crashing down Tomato Peak at the age of 18. And so at that time I knew I needed to make some changes. But I didn't realise I couldn't find the help that appealed to me. And then my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, and I always got to recognise my beautiful wife, Jewel Ngahuka, mother of our 5 children.
5 children, wow.
And we're married 20 years coming up.
Oh, wow.
But her mum was actually involved in the church. At that time I was Elam, and they transitioned over to Destiny.
Yeah.
And so at first I went along for the feeds. The feeds were good, the music was good, the youth, it was a good atmosphere. A lot of youth from Flaxmere were going along at the time, and then that sort of captured my heart, and here I am today, 2 decades.
Yeah. So you owned your own company as well at one stage. Yeah. Tell us a bit about that.
Yep. So currently I'm the owner of 2020 Construction.
Yeah.
Construction. We've been going for 3.5 years, just before COVID. Well, the year of COVID. And so what we do with the work we do in the church, helping rehabilitate men and women, helping them get off drugs and alcohol, helping them get into employment, getting a home, getting their children back. Again, coming back to the employment issue, some I felt needed a better opportunity. I have for 25, 30 years building experience and construction experience here in Hawke's Bay, Auckland and Australia. And so we formed the company, and we have 18 staff, and that's growing. And what we do is carpentry, painting and decorating, and as of recent, the last 6 months, doing the civil work around the silt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I was going to ask you about that, because you're part of the Man Up group, and obviously that's part of Destiny Church and that, and they were quite involved. You were quite involved locally with the cleanup. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah. So I'm currently a resident in Napier, in Miani, and so when it all happened, the whole cyclone Gabrielle hit that eve or that morning or that night. Because of my background in building, you always have stuff. So my generator and all that stuff packed on the trailer, shot over to the Civil Defence Centre in St Joe's Māori Girls, and there was no power at the time, there was no generator, so I ended up pulling out my generator, left it there for the whole week, and just helping out there with all the hundreds of elderly people that were getting vacated to the area, or to that centre. And then from there I knew straight away, you just kicked in, I need to get out there and help some people. And so we quickly shot out to Estelle, because what really stirred me is I actually jumped on Facebook in the morning and wanted to see, okay, what's going on. Early, and it must have been about 5 o'clock, I saw my mate going live on his roof out Estelle, and the water was up to his gutter, and he had his kids in a canoe, some kind of dinghy there, that's right, he had a dinghy, and his uncle was, elderly uncle there, and they were getting ready to get on the boat. He was yelling out for help, his phone was on 7%. And so when I saw that, I knew, man, I need to get my family to safety, so that's what we did. But anyway, fast forward from there, as soon as the bridges open, because most of my church is based in Hastings, as soon as the bridges open and communications were strong again, I went live. I ended up talking to Brian Tamaki. I asked him, hey, can we send, if we send down 100 guys, they'll be here working for months. If we can even get them down for a couple of weeks, do some voluntary work, diggers, trucks, all the rest of it. My community is hurting. And then he put the call out, and the first day 400 showed up.
Wow.
So I hadn't planned the accommodation for 400. So that was so I took
luckily you affiliated to Many Mariah.
Oh yeah, well this one was the Hastings District Council. So I spoke to Henare O'Keefe, a beautiful friend, and many others in the council, and we got a hold of some people, and we ended up taking over. They ended up giving us the Hastings Sports Centre.
Oh yeah.
And so 400 quickly grew to 1,200.
Wow.
And so it was a great response.
All around
they came from Invercargill. They weren't just actually in the church. We probably had at least 400 from the church, but the remainder was actually from the community. I met some great people. Some could speak English really well. Some were half English, a few interesting chaps, but from all ethnicities and all backgrounds came business people. From as far as up north, I know of three companies that came down with a truck, transported 2 diggers. Wow. Him and his wife and their children came down, and he volunteered the whole month. And all they wanted to do is have a place where they could sleep, and you just showed me where the work was.
So you just fed them and gave them a place, and they worked free of charge?
Yes, that's literally what happened. And they would resource themselves. We, of course, our centre became quite a hot spot from the nation's perspective, where they were sending resource, and fuel and stuff like that, and we just basically took care of ourselves. And because I'm a local and from here, the Marais, most of them I'm connected to, also Tamoyo as well, actually. And so I knew where I could send all these hundreds of really keen New Zealanders that wanted to help.
And what were they doing, just clearing salt and things like that?
I think in the first 2 weeks we cleared out 120 homes with shovels and wheelbarrows, because you couldn't get a digger in the house.
Yeah.
And so we're clearing salt chest high.
Wow.
Some of the homes, and I'm so thankful for all the young fellas that came actually, because we had a mixture of ages from 75, in between, newborns to 75. Now some of the elderly people, I was telling them, look, they really wanted to get out there and get into the silt, and I gave them the option, but they eventually just jumped in and did all the food, because that was still really important for keeping the whole, it was like an army of volunteers. And so we sweep through the whole region, Tamoyo, Patani, Estelle, Pukitapu South, Mōtio, Waiheke, Pakowhai, and Omahu. Yeah.
And it must have been quite something, because you saw the devastation firsthand. How did that affect you?
I think the 20 years being a pastor, you kind of, I'm not saying that you're prepared for this stuff, but you have some kind of emotional strength. I call it spiritual strength. You draw from within. So you have that there. But in saying that, I don't think anything prepares you really for some of the stuff you've seen. It was horrendous. It was horrific. There were families crying. Most of the time, we were doing the work with the shovels, but it was actually just an unspoken, non-verbal hug that actually was quite. They would draw tears. Some of the families hadn't had any support. Yeah. They had no support. They were angry at everyone. And so part of that too actually motivated me to actually, you know what, I'm going to stand for our region of Tukituki, because I saw that. I mean, these guys need someone who care. That was my perspective. Yeah.
And how do you think the government and the councils have handled the recovery?
I could say so many different things to that answer. Partly because some of the council are my friends now, but look, how do you prepare for a 1 year storm? I think the timeliness, they could have done a lot better. They could have got more resources out. Look, I know everyone's, there's a lot of people out there that are thanking the civil defence. I have a different perspective, because I was at a civil defence centre that had no resources. And I saw 200 to 300 elderly people there. It looked like a hospital ward when I rocked up. And I got to make a big shout out to Whai Kingi and the St. Joseph's Māori Girls College, who held that down, who fed them. If it wasn't for my generator and another guy there who putting his generator in, they would have no power. Just to make simple things like a hot cup of coffee for all these elderly people that were getting put there. So I think the government could have responded a lot quicker. I was recently in a meeting. I attended the Pakowhai community meeting 2 nights ago. And the response, look, they're making areas category 3, which means that they can live there, but they won't get any insurance. And if they want to do any building or get building or resource consent, it's probably going to be a no. And so what do? Because majority of Pakowhai now is in that category, and all of Estale and a few other, I think 350 odd properties. And so they've got this deal where it's a 50-50 deal. Government will give 50%. Council has to come up with the other 50%. Council have negotiated, I think, a good package around the roading and other sort of, I suppose, additions to that deal. But again, for me, and thinking about the people of Tukituki, I'm sure we can do better.
And do you think your involvement in the recovery and that will help your chances in the election?
I do hope it does. At the end of the day, people, I'll say this, if we want different, we've got to vote different. We've had, I think, close to 80 years, maybe more. I actually haven't had a look at the history of red and blue, Labour and National. I think a lot of people want different. I think a lot of people of our community, the people that I've been speaking to and rubbing up shoulders with, they've been talking about they want something different. They're sick of the same thing happening and going on, broken promises and people throwing out carrots for votes. We had a debate last week. The first debate, it was actually organised by the Hastings Youth Council. And one of the questions was, do you believe people can tell the truth in politics? And so you had the Green, the Labour and the National, obviously, and the ACT, they all said yes. I couldn't just say one answer. I had to be honest. I said, look, I know I can tell the truth. I don't know about these guys, because like everyone else, I'm gonna be voting too, and I want to make sure my vote counts. And I'm not talking about a wasted voter, but I'm talking about going to someone or to a party that has values that help me and my family and our community.
Because some would say you've got quite a tough road if you are planning to win the seat, because historically it's either been a Labour or a National. Are you wanting to win the seat, and is that a realistic expectation?
It's a good question. I'm definitely wanting to win the seat. In terms of a realistic expectation, I'm not too sure what a realistic expectation is, to be honest, but I'm definitely wanting to win the seat, because I believe we can do better. I just believe we can do better.
And you're also going to obviously go for the party vote as well. And do you think Vision New Zealand has a chance of actually getting into Parliament?
Okay, well, here's a bit of a different thing for our party. So Vision New Zealand is actually
part of
the Freedoms party, and so there's a few other minor parties that are connected, and so the agreement is my party vote actually is, or the Vision New Zealand party vote, I should say, is submitted, whereby it's actually the Freedoms New Zealand party vote.
So do you think Freedoms will get into Parliament?
I think we've got a really good shot across the nation.
Well, they're not sitting too high in the polls at the moment.
I haven't checked the recent one, but I think it was doing better than the other minor parties. But from all the events we've been doing in the last 9 weeks across the nation, we have massive turnouts down in Invercargill, all the south. I do believe there's this could be, what I believe, is an upset at the ballot box. Could be maybe not what we think, but maybe what we actually want.
Yeah. So is Vision New Zealand and is Freedom's party, are they Christian parties?
They have Christian values, but in saying that, I won't say it's specifically just a Christian. Well, Freedom New Zealand is different, but Vision New Zealand has definitely Christian values in its basis, but at the same time it's all encompassing. We've got people from different community groups. Recently, one of the Māori candidates who's just come on board with Vision New Zealand in the Waikato, she was with the Māori Party, or the Green Party. Apologies there, but it's a party for all people.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned that you stood in the local government elections for the Flaxmere ward for Hastings District Council, and you actually didn't do too badly. I mean, historically, those are quite low numbered polls and that, but I mean, you came second, I think. So that's how are you? What sort of how different is your campaign this time to that campaign that you ran?
Definitely, you've got to be kidding yourself and thinking they're the same. They're not the same.
No.
Central government is totally different from local government, but the difference would be, in a nutshell, I'm working more. It feels like I'm doing a lot more work.
Well, what is that work? What are you doing? Meetings?
Yeah, public meetings, door knocks, billboards, just hot cup of coffee meetings, having a chat meetings, meeting with different community groups, doing what we're doing today. So all that sort of stuff. I mean, we did that with the local election, but this one's, I feel, is a bit different. A little bit more stretching as well in terms of the region, right across Tukituki.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of work to be done.
And what areas are you focusing on? Traditionally, the Tukituki seat is one in Havelock, really, and the rural areas. Have you analysed what you need to do to win, or are you just going out to all areas?
I have analysed where we need to win, and you're right, the rural areas and the Havelock North, Hastings area, and so that is a big focus. We've still got I've still got a big road ahead to do, still more work to do, but again, I'm just focusing on every single person that's in the Tukituki electorate.
And what are the key messages you want to get across?
Key message? Okay. Well, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again. If you want different, we've got to vote different. Vote for me is a vote for someone, I would say, who's a real person. I'm not a career politician in the sense that this is actually what I had planned to do, but I'm for the people. I'm a community person. I'm a business person, so I believe in generating wealth for our family, so that's a big passion of mine. It's helping the family do well financially, because if they do well financially, the whole community does well financially. Also, we're big on the party, actually, and that's something that I would agree with too, is that we're big on no more race-based policy. At the moment, one of the health policies is that if you're Māori, you get preference for health services, and I think that as a Māori, that can sound great, but as a New Zealander, I don't think that's fair. And so we want to look at challenging that. We want to look at ending the mandates so we can get everyone their jobs back. We also have a strong policy around law and order. We'll put it out there that in the first 6 months we will lower the ram rate that's been happening, the ram rates. From 2017 to 2022, under this government, the last two terms, the ram rates in New Zealand have gone up 658%, literally 2 a day. And that could be because of a whole lot of reasons, the family, the community, many things, but that's one of the things that we're good at through our Man Up program. Also, currently I work in the prison, and also in some marae. I'm actually a co-chair of the marae in Flaxmere. And so one of our big things is actually creating policy around family. So our flagship policy, I should say, is family. And so everything that helps a family, that's what we stand for.
Okay, because there's that sort of, as you say, helping people so they choose better lives and that, and kids growing up and that. But how do you solve the issue of the crime that's happening now?
Awesome. So a lot of the crime well, say it this way, we are in a crime crisis, and it's not really the issue, it's an outcome of deeper issues. A lot of the things we have in our community are results of other things.
Yeah.
Family breakdowns, and that could be simple as mental health issues, education, health issues, financial issues, all those things impact the family home. And so a lot of people that turn to crime is largely because of they just don't have enough money. I mean, right now we've got a cost of living crisis as well. That's not going to help. I mean, if you think about the whole cyclone, during that whole thing, there was looting and all sorts going on.
Yeah.
And I actually sent out a few guys to go and be some voluntary security out Estelle, Bayview, Puita, to ensure people were getting reassurance.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of things we have to change. We have to redo the model that we have. Money alone doesn't solve it, but it's key programs that need funding, like Man Up, but also like other organisations that I know that we work with, and getting them into those spaces.
Do you think there should be harsher sentences for people that are caught committing crimes?
Harsher sentence. That's a big question. We talk about this in the prison, actually. I think we need to be more stringent on petty crimes, more harder, because a petty crime turns into a bigger crime. And that's one of our policies, is that for any youth, I'm not saying lower the age of conviction or anything like that, but make them more accountable. And it could be a curfew, it could be a whole lot of things. Obviously we have to put that out to the community, but one of our stances is being more stronger when they, it's the old thing, when you get away with stealing a lollipop, then it just grows, you start stealing more things, and then it turns into other crime. And sometimes it's not even about the finances, it's about the thrill of the whole thing, and you develop these habits and they become entrenched, and all of a sudden it's a lifestyle of theft and criminal activity. And so we need to look at redoing the whole system.
You say you do a lot of work in prisons and that. Do prisons work?
Do prisons work? Well, statistically, it doesn't look like they're working. It looks like we're getting worse, and our tax money is going to fund it. I'm actually, funny you say that, I'm actually going into a meeting next week about redesigning the prison here and what that's going to look like, the facilities. So I don't think prisons work. It's not that it's a failed, well, yeah, it is a failed model, but it's halfway there. It just needs a different approach, I believe. It needs to have more options or more programs and support that rehabilitate the inmates.
Is that not happening at the moment?
Not really. It's not really happening. And I work with inmates, and some of them just, I'll do the programs because I tick the box, I just want to get out of here.
Yeah.
It actually doesn't rehabilitate them.
No.
They end up going back in.
Yeah.
Then there's a high percentage of reappearing again in the court and going back into prison, reoffending.
Yeah.
So, I don't think prisons work fully.
Yeah.
We can do better.
Yeah. Now, just speaking about Brian Tamaki and Vision and Destiny Church and that, and the Freedoms Party, some may say there's quite a negative message coming from them. What do you say to that? And is that fair? Because they seem to be opposing a lot of things, and they come out and obviously Brian Tamaki is quite forceful in the way he says things. Is that a negative message, or do you think he's got a positive message too? And does your party have a positive message?
Thank you for good questions. Really good question. Part of Parliament's role, they have this part. One part's called the opposition. They're meant to oppose and challenge some of the legislation that's getting put in law or made law in New Zealand. And for me, my perspective is I don't think they've done a good enough job. They could have do a lot more arguing and opposing than what they've done. So back to Brian Tamaki, he does what he does. But I think it's good because sometimes, as example, I was at a protest the start of this year we did with Vision New Zealand in Auckland, Queen Street, excuse me. And it was about the education system, the sexual education system that's going on in the schools right now. Do you know about those?
Yeah.
They're quite horrific, some of them, some of the schools. Some of the, I suppose, dogma and doctrine that we're allowing to come through. And so all he's doing really is just letting everyone know what's going on. Yeah, you're very, very challenging, but I think you need someone like that. I was sitting down with a homeowner last week who let me put the billboard on their house, and he invited me in for a cup of tea. And he said to me, "So what's your big statement?" I don't know what angle he was coming from. So what do you mean? He goes, "Well, this is what I've been telling people. We need to send Brian Tamaki into Parliament because government won't like that he's there, and he'll disrupt them and hold them to account." And so I think that's a good thing, what he's doing. Hey, not everyone's going to agree.
Yeah.
But we're New Zealanders. We're a mixture, and I think we're getting more mixed up as immigration and everything. Other nationalities are coming here. We're getting a mixture now of different ethos, different religions, different perspectives. But we always need that someone to say, "Hey, this is what's going wrong." So from that perspective, I think what he's saying is great. Vision New Zealand, I think we have a positive message. Our flagship policy is families. We want families to succeed, and I think everyone wants that for their family. What was your last one? And
just with your positive message, I think you've answered
but
that.
I think a lot of people just don't like Brian Tamaki.
Yeah.
So
because he is controversial.
Yeah.
And I mean what he said about the cyclone and the fact that what caused it and that, and he says that he was taken out of context and that, and he mentioned porn and stuff like that. Do you subscribe to that? Was the cyclone punishment for? Yeah, or is it just a natural event and climate change and that
I like
sort of?
what you ask. See, with Brian Tamaki, so his function in the church is the apostle. And if you have a look through the Bible and you look at Jesus and his apostles, they were actually ridiculed by cities. They were hated and they were chased out.
Yeah.
There was one point there they tried to get a hold of Jesus quite a few times, and even Paul. And so, from my perspective of how I see Brian Tamaki, in that function in the church, he's doing that role where he brings light, which is no different to Moses, no different to other rabbis in that light. But coming back to what you're saying, that's his role, that's his function. I do believe, I got this question asked, do you believe in climate change? I actually said, because the question before that was, will you tell the truth? And I said, yes. And the person asked me, do you believe in climate change?
I was going to ask you that as well. So
I actually said no.
Okay.
But you weren't given an opportunity to explain the context of why. So my views, obviously I'm a man of God. I believe in God. God changed my life, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not here to tell everyone to believe the same thing. In fact, there's a lot of people I rub up against where we believe opposing things.
Yeah.
But we're all friends. That's fine. That makes us different. We're a community of different perspectives and this and that. And so for me, for climate change, and again, in reference to what Brian Tamaki was saying, there are things in the Bible where there are pestilences and plagues and all these catastrophes that they were linked to sin. Now that's the perspective, again, we're talking about Christian belief.
Yeah.
So I agree with that. Now how me as a politician or a community person, how do I communicate that? That's the bit that I have to navigate. That's the bit that we're doing now, that I have to pull out. So I believe that. Would I say what he said? I'm not sure.
Because some people would find that and do find that offensive.
Yeah, they do find it. Even the fact that I said I don't believe in climate change,
Yeah.
so the person found that offensive.
Because many would say that climate change is a fact. It's not. It's not up for debate anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
But I'm just telling you my honest and my truth.
Yeah.
Look, I don't know everything. Things
Yeah.
might change.
Yeah.
The more I rub up against people and get to find out some things and do my own investigation, things might change. But coming back to that, I hope that answered that question.
Yeah. Now, just speaking about Jesus, the message of Jesus is love and peace. Is that what your party espouses? Is that the message that you do?
Well, definitely. I'm all for love and peace. But if you talk about Jesus, there's a whole lot of other stuff that maybe mainstream don't really know. Like he actually says, I didn't come to bring peace but a sword. That's quite harsh. When I learned that, I was like, whoa, what do you mean by that? And so you've got to delve into the context of that, what that actually means. Even love, what does love mean? We're in a community now where that thing's getting plastered over everything and calling it love for love. I mean, is that really love? So coming back to our party, Yeah, definitely. We love is, there's no greater love than to lay your life down for another. I definitely hold that value. I serve my community regardless of race, creed, religion. I think that's really important.
Yeah. What is your view on the LGBTQI community? And how do you get them to vote for you?
Good question. So when we launched my campaign, or launched and announced Talks Bay, I was standing, we had it over here in Napier, just because of the venues at the time. And we had some people from the LGBT community, and they actually enrolled and supported our party in our campaign. I think the media have done a good job on bringing some kind of division, again, coming back to controversial statements from Brian Tamaki in the church and what the media drive, that can be skewed, because I've been raised with gay family members, that my aunties and uncles. I've got an auntie uncle. That's just what we've always called him, her, and she's a tough sharer. So you don't want to, growing up, you don't want to give that uncle, which is auntie, a bit of cheek, because might beat you up. Back then they could beat you up. And so my views, they haven't changed. I love all people.
Yeah.
I've got friends in this community. Before I came to the Lord, they used to do a lot of drinking and stuff like that, as you do as a young fella. That was the community I used to hang out with, a large portion of them. Don't ask me why, that's just what happened.
Yeah. Now, last year we saw anti-mandate and anti-vaccine protests at Parliament. Did you attend? Did you participate in those protests?
Not only did I attend, I organised the ones here.
Okay.
And so in Anderson Park we had 4,000 plus attend. I don't know, I can't even remember how many protests we did. We did a march through Napier. Yeah, definitely I attended, and I organised the ones here.
Why do you feel so strongly? And are you anti-mandate and anti-vaccine?
For me, I'm anti-dictatorship, anti-mandate. I'm not really anti-vaccine personally myself.
So you believe vaccines...
Certain vaccines are good, some aren't good.
And the one for COVID?
Yeah, look, again, my beliefs, I believe they're not good. If you look around the world now, they're starting to find all this information and they're starting to pull the vaccine. But I'm definitely anti-mandate. I don't think our government has the right.
I'm not sure about that. I'll have to check that.
Check that out. But coming back to the mandates, I don't think any government has the power to tell you what to do in your own home to certain degrees. If you look at the anti-smacking that came out years ago, now they're starting to tell parents how to parent, and now you're looking at the sexualised education in schools. There's all sorts of doctrines that are coming through that the government is now seeping through or legislating, and so the mandate for me was just control. That's how I see it. I see it like that. A lot of business owners I know here in Hawke's Bay, investment property owners, they suffered. The community suffered. Yeah, I know they were all in and around the risk of losing your life, but again, and this is quite a fresh topic, being at that Pakowhai meeting the other night, the question was why is the government trying to categorise our property as we can't live there, all based on the risk of life, and this is what the community said, when no one actually died in our community. Now I get that perspective. There's so many different perspectives to think about, but for me, I'm anti-mandate. I don't think any government should have the right to tell you to stay in your house, to do this, do that.
Would you consider yourself to be a conspiracy theorist?
I don't even know what that is, so no, definitely not.
Yeah.
Not into conspiracies.
Yeah, because there has been a move away from what people believe, and there's so many different views out on the internet, and that is that healthy to have that? And some say it's freedom of speech, and that. What's your view on that?
That's a big topic, freedom of speech, conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
Oh, look, everyone has their... We talked about this actually in the week, start of the week. I was with a group of people. We're talking about different opinions, and how some people's opinions can become convictions, deep convictions and belief. And the whole topic of our discussion at the time was would you be willing to test your opinion? And I'm always willing to openly, what I believe, is that right? And I'm willing to make changes and stuff like that. But I don't think it's good to go down the rabbit hole. I know people that do. I've got friends, and that's not my thing. I think it's a waste of time. But coming back to views and freedom of speech, everyone has the right to say whatever they want. Everyone has the right to believe whatever they want. I don't think anyone can take that from anyone.
Yeah. Because just talking to you, you seem quite a bit more, if I can use the word, moderate to Brian Tamaki. Is that a deliberate positioning of how you are? Is that what you...
That's how I am, actually.
Yeah.
I'm quite that's how I am. This is how I am.
Yeah.
I'm me like this. Like I said, when someone asks me about climate change, no, I don't believe in it. I'll tell you what I do believe in, I'll tell you what I don't believe in.
Yeah.
That's how I am. If someone wants me to help them believe it, that's a different type of conversation.
Okay, now, what can you offer as Tukituki MP, what, say, Anna Lork or Catherine Wedd or any other candidate could?
Awesome. I think I definitely have more of a community feel. I'm very engaged in our community across Hawke's Bay. Recently, I just got here in Napier, they awarded me with what was the award? The Napier Pilot Trust.
Oh, yeah.
Gave me an award for, I don't even remember what it was for, actually, because I wasn't looking for it. Making Napier a better community. That's right. It's making Napier a better community. I got an award in Flaxmere for Flaxmere Hero. And not that I'm saying I got more awards than, they probably got more than me. But the thing that I'll bring to the table is the heart of the people in the community. I'm very real. I'm very teachable. I don't know everything. I'm always willing to learn. But I think I bring that to the table, bring that community heart and spirit and mind on the table, bring injustice to the table. I don't like injustice, hence why I believe and organise the freedoms and rights marches here. I believe everyone has their say. So I definitely bring love to the table, love all people, community spirit. I love our community. And yeah, I don't really want to talk about how hard I work, but like, I work 100 hours a week. I run a business. I'm a pastor. I'm a chair of a marae. I'm a deputy chair of a program out in the prison. Now I'm running for politics. Obviously, things will shift and change should this.
Yeah, because you have to go to Parliament.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll definitely ensure that the voice of Tukituki is loud and proud at the table.
So, what do you promise people who vote for you?
I was thinking about this. What do you promise? What do you promise everyone? A better politician first.
Yeah.
Someone who will listen to the people, walk with the people. Because I know politicians, some that don't. But I'll walk with our beautiful Tukituki families, put their concerns on the table and fight for them unapologetically and uncompromised. And again, I'm not afraid to stand up and, because at the end of the day, but not only stand up, but work together, because at the end of the day, you're not just there by yourself. You've got other MPs there, and you all have to make decisions together for the betterment of not only Tukituki, but New Zealand.
So why should someone who, say, isn't a Christian, why should they vote for you?
Well, if you're sick of this government, the easy one is don't vote for them again, because they're going to get back in if you vote for them. Why should they vote for me? Look, we need to do something different. If you want someone that will fight for you locally and nationally in our communities, I'm the man, I'm the person that you should vote for. We need to vote different, we need change. There's a whole lot of agendas that are coming through our government that I believe need to be challenged. Opposition aren't doing their job. They're not opposing it, but it looks like they are, but really they're all doing cross-party agreements and things like that. And so, throw me in there. I said this at the, bit of a funny statement, I don't know if I should say it, but I said it at the debates. I said this quote, and it was, how can we have a healthy nation with a sick government? I said, send me in there and I'll give them a jab, an injection, and make them better.
Michael Ngahuka, thank you so much for your time and all the best for the elections.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.